back. Time for more Tales from the Swamp. Today, we're going to be reading a book from the Eslaf Erol series, Beggar. This book was requested by Cyborg Wolf 5964. Thank you so much for requesting this book. I read it once long ago, but it was really nice to get a refresher on the tale. Let's start. Beggar by Revan. Eslaf Erol was the last of the litter of 5 born to the queen of the prosperous Nordic kingdom of Erolgard, Teacup, and her husband, the king of Erolgard, Itlaf. During pregnancy, the queen had been more than twice as wide as she was tall, and the act of delivery took 3 months and 6 days after it had begun. Whoa, that's a really long labor process. It is perhaps understandable that then Teacup elected upon expelling Eslaf to frown, say good riddance, and die. Like many Nords, Itlaf did not care very much for his wife and less for his children. His subjects were puzzled, therefore, when he announced that he would follow that ancient tradition of his people of Atmora of following his beloved spouse to the grave. They had not thought they were particularly in love, nor were they aware that such a tradition existed. Still, the simple people were grateful, for the little royal drama alleviated their boredom, which was and is a common problem in the more obscure parts of northern Skyrim, particularly in wintertide. He gathered his household staff and his 5 fat, bawling little heirs in front of him, and divided his estate. To his son Enop he gave his title. To his son Lernu he gave his land. To his son Suibud he gave his fortune. To his daughter Lysifitra he gave his army. Itlaf's advisors had suggested he keep the inheritance together for the good of the kingdom, but Itlaf did not particularly care for his advisors, or for the kingdom for that matter. Upon making his announcement, he drew his dagger across his throat. One of the nurses, who was rather shy, finally decided to speak as the king's life ebbed away. "Your Highness, you forgot your 5th child, little Eslaf." Good Itlaf groaned. It is somewhat hard to concentrate with blood gushing from one's throat, after all. You're not wrong. The king tried in vain to think of something to bequeath, but there was nothing left. Finally he sputtered, irritably, "Eslaf should have taken something then," and died. That a babe but a few days old was expected to demand his rightful inheritance was arguably unfair. But so Eslaf Erol was given his birthright with his father's dying breath. He would have nothing but what he had taken. Since no one else would have him, the shy nurse, whose name was Drusba, took the baby home. It was a decrepit little shack, and over the years that followed, it became more and more decrepit. Unable to find work, Drusba sold all of her furnishings to buy food for little Eslaf. By the time he was old enough to walk and talk, she had sold the walls and the roof as well, so they had nothing but a floor to call home. And if you've ever been to Skyrim, you can appreciate that that is scarcely sufficient. Drusba did not tell Eslaf the story of his birth, or that his brothers and sister were leading quite nice lives with their inheritances, for, as we have said, she was rather shy, and found it difficult to broach the subject. She was so painfully shy, in fact, that whenever he asked any questions about where he came from, Drusba would run away. That was more or less her answer to everything, to flee. In order to communicate with her at all, Eslaf learned how to run almost as soon as he could walk. He couldn't keep up with his adopted mother at first, but, in time, he learned to go toe-heel if he anticipated a short but fast sprint, and heel-toe if it seemed Drusba was headed for a long-distance marathon flight. He never did get all the answers he needed from her, but Eslaf did learn how to run. The kingdom of Erolgard had, in the years that Eslaf was growing, become quite a grim place. King Enop did not have a treasury, for Suibud had been given that. He did not have any property for income, for Lernu had been given that. He did not have an army to protect the people, for Lysiphetra had been given that. Furthermore, as he was still but a child, all decisions in the kingdom went through Enop's rather corrupt council. It had become a bureaucratic, exploitative land of high taxes, rampant crime, and regular incursions from neighboring kingdoms. Not a particularly unusual situation for a kingdom of Tamriel, but an unpleasant one nonetheless. Sorry, I need a sip of tea. The time finally came when the tax collector arrived to Drispa's hovel, such as it was, to collect the only thing he could, the floor. Rather than protest, the poor, shy maid ran away, and Eslaf never saw her again. Without a home or a mother, Eslaf did not know what to do. He had grown accustomed to the cold, open air in Drispa's shack, but he was hungry. "May I have a piece of meat?" he asked the butcher down the street. "I'm very hungry." The man had known the boy for years, often spoke to his wife about how sorry he felt for him, growing up in a home with no ceilings or walls. He smiled at Eslaf and said, "Go away, or I'll hit you." Eslaf hurriedly left the butcher and went to a nearby tavern. The tavern keeper had been a former valet in the king's court, and knew that the boy was by right a prince. Many times he had seen the poor ragged lad in the streets, and sighed at the way fate had treated him. "May I have something to eat?" Eslaf asked this tavern keeper. "I'm very hungry." "You're lucky I don't cook you up and eat you," replied the tavern keeper. Eslaf hurriedly left the tavern. For the rest of the day, the boy approached the good citizens of Erelgard, begging for food. One person had thrown something at him, but it turned out to be an inedible rock. As night fell, a raggedy man came up to Eslaf and, without saying a word, handed him a piece of fruit and a piece of dried meat. The lad took it, wide-eyed, and as he devoured it, he thanked the man very sweetly. "If I see you begging on the streets tomorrow," the man growled, "I'll kill you myself. There are only so many beggars we of the guild allow in any one town, and you make it one too many. You're ruining business." It was a good thing Eslaf Erol knew how to run. He ran all night. Eslaf Erol's story is continued in the book Thief. Yay! I really enjoy that story of Eslaf Erol. As the book said, the next book is called Thief, and then there's a third book called Warrior, and the last book is called King, and all 4 books tell the story of Eslaf Erol and the various adventures and misadventures he gets into. Thank you so much, Cyborg Wolf, for the recommendation. There's a very interesting thing about the names in this series. Eslaf Erol is written backwards, and it means false lore. Lapirkapa is apocryphal. Itlaf is faulty. Enop is phony. Laernu is unreal. Suibud is dubious. Lysiphetra is artificial. And Druspa is absurd. It's so cool! I really love when names and stories have like patterns or different themes. It's so cool. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all have a very comfy day. Bye!